Oh, hey guys, Kid Creep here. Today, we're actually not going to be talking about the PCU system for once. Today, we're actually going to be talking about the Army's new CTAPS system. This year is the new level 3. Well, it might be. So we've talked a lot on this channel about the PCU system, which of course consists of, the level 5 top and bottoms I'm wearing right now, as well as all the other 7+ levels of the system. But that system actually came out back in 2001. And then the Equix Gen 3 that was born out of that is also pretty old at this point. So the US Army is putting our tax dollars to good use and making sure that they are giving our soldiers the best to keep them as warm as possible, because we're starting to see the battlefield shift into some pretty cold environments. So I think that is a pretty good idea. So the new CTAP system is seeking to replace the Equix Gen 3 system. But up here I have the new CTAPS level 3. So I just did a video talking about level 3, and both the PCU and the Equix Gen 3 system, it is going to be the same thing. And that's because both of those systems follow the 7-level layering system used by one of the most remarkable climbers of our time, Mark Twight, who was also the developer of the PCU system. So just a little refresher, level 3 refers to an insulated mid-layer. A mid-layer is something that is designed to go inside of the system, so it can go underneath our main shell, but it's very versatile, so it can be used as an outer garment as well. In the PCU Block 0 and Block 1 systems, the Gen 1 and 2, as well as the Equix Gen 3 systems, it is going to consist of a high loft fleece. So if you look at alpinists and mountain climbers, we're starting to see that the fleece is really going out of style, and the low loft puffer is being used in favor of it. Now, there's a lot of benefits to a low loft puffer, and the biggest one is that we actually have a shell, and that makes it a very attractive choice, because not only can we use it underneath our main shell in an effort to not take off our alpine uniform or action suit, thus dumping heat, we can just pull out our insulating mid layer, throw it over top, and quickly add some warmth to our system. This jacket here is not actually approved as an outer layer. As you can see, there are no spots on the shoulders or on the chest, so you can't put any identification on here to let everyone know, your unit and rank. So for the military, this is strictly a mid layer. This is supposed to go underneath a shell, and it shouldn't be worn like this. But the reason I think it's so cool is because, well, you can wear it as an outer layer. I think it's really cool to see that the Army is now looking at this kind of a design to replace the fleece, because it makes a lot more sense in an alpine style environment. Now, this thing is still a prototype, so this may not be the final form that we see, and we don't even know if the CTAP system is going to be officially adopted. So today we're really just looking at something that is a possibility. Now, the most interesting thing about this jacket is that it has a lot of similarities to one of the most excellent mid layers on the market, which is the Arc'teryx Atom hoodie, formerly known as the Arc'teryx Atom LT. So of course, a low loft jacket is going to be a puffer that has low loft instead of high loft, like a belay jacket or a level 7. So on the inside, we see a very thin shell material to protect that batting that's inside. The batting is the loft material. And then on the outside, we see a very similar minimum shell type of fabric that is going to be both water and wind resistant. So that way you don't need to add a shell over top of your insulating mid layer in an effort to keep yourself protected from your environment, right? You don't want to be rolling around in the snow here with a fleece on. It's going to get caked in snow, and then your body heat will melt it, get wet. So fleeces make a lot of sense for some applications, but for something like this, a low loft puffer is a really awesome choice. All right, so starting with the outside of the jacket, we do have 2 zippered pockets down here at the bottom. We have a nice long pull tab on these, and the zippered hand pockets aren't just great as hand warmer pockets to try to roast your fingers a little bit. We can pre-stage things like gloves or hats or glove liners on the inside of this jacket, so when we pull it out of our pack, they're ready to go. That way there's less digging around inside of our pack. It all comes out with the same garment. And then we can also take off some of our wet stuff, throw them on inside of these pockets, zip it up, and then use our body heat to try to cook those dry. On the Arc'teryx Atom hoodie, we do find the same thing. We do have those hand warmer zippered pockets on the bottom. The only difference is that the Atom LT does actually have fleece lining on the inside, which is really convenient. It's definitely warmer for roasting your hands inside of there, which I think is great. Down the middle of the jacket, we have a nice long heavy duty zipper. It's got some really big nasty teeth on there, which is great for cutting through ice and snow and stuff like that. So I'm glad to see that on there, because the one on the Atom hoodie is pretty anemic, but I've never had issues with that one. The one on the Atom hoodie does actually allow you to pull it open. The one on the CTAPS here, if you do try to pull at it, it's not going to go anywhere. So you do have to rely on that zipper. I do like that on the Atom LT. If you really can't get to that little pull tab or something, you need to rip the jacket off, you literally can just rip it off your body. But this one, they have a really big and long pull tab on there, so you can use that with some big heavy duty gloves, so that's always good. So when we open it up, the first thing that we'll notice is this big white tag here. Now this says CTAPS Prototype Lightweight Insulation Jacket. And this is made by Kenyan Consumer Products. So I don't really know them, but yeah. On the right inside part of the jacket, we do have a little pocket in here. And this is great for shoving things like an extra hat inside of there. You can also shove your phone in there if you want to keep that warm, keep it nice and close to your body. But on the left side, we do not see a pocket. So it's only present on the right side. Now on the Atom hoodie, the biggest difference there is the little inside pocket is on the left side. This one's on the right side. Not a big difference. Now, if we look at the inside of the jacket, we will see that there is a fleece lined panel, and that's actually a big stretch fleece lined vent on the side. So instead of having a full shell all the way around, there is this stretchy vent here that extends all the way from the bottom of the jacket up to about the wrist here. And then we do also see that there is removal of material here at the armpit, but we'll get into that in a bit. So the purpose of this stretch vent panel is to provide some stretch to this very rigid material. I don't think that this is a 2 or a 4-way stretch. It is pretty taut on there. So this is going to allow you better freedom of movement when you have this thing on, which is great. It's not going to give you that straight jacket effect that you can get on some less technical nylon shells. And by extending it all the way up to the wrist, that means that in the military, they're going to be able to better fit this to a wider variety of body shapes. So whether or not someone has some really skinny arms, really big arms, or some really heavy duty layers on underneath, this is going to be able to fit over a lot of that. So on the Atom hoodie, we do also see that fleece line stretch panel, but it runs all the way from the bottom up to about the armpit, and there is no removal of material. I would compare this to something like the M65 field jacket liner. We do see that same concept of removing material on the armpit, because this is a notoriously hot and wet part of the body. So instead of putting a thinner, lighter weight material, kind of like what we see on the Block 0 level 3 fleece, they put that waffle grid fleece under the armpit just to break up that high loft fleece, reduce material, promote breathability, and, not have too much fabric to sponge up that sweat. But on this one, they just completely deleted material altogether, which personally I thought was not a great idea at first, but after some use, I noticed that if you're wearing this either over top of a shell or underneath a shell, it doesn't really affect anything. I don't really notice like a lot of excess chill under my armpit. However, I do think that is a great little place for snow and crap to just kind of get directly inside of your jacket. On the Atom hoodie, I do like that it is just a full stretch panel up to the armpit. There is no direct entrance into the jacket. So not only is this here to promote mobility and allow it to fit over wider range of body types and layers, but it's also there to dump excess heat. Now that's something that I really love between the CTAPS and the Atom hoodie, is just how great of an active mid layer that they are. So this nylon shell is going to be much less breathable than something like this. So if you are wearing this during varying levels of activity, that's going to help dump that excess heat and just make sure that you're not, overheating inside of this thing. So the next thing that I'll note is that here on the wrist, we don't really see any bells or whistles. It is just a very simple elastic band around the wrist, which I think is really nice because we don't really need any Velcro cinch adjustments up here. But what I do love about this jacket is that we do see a little thumb loop here. And what that does is it allows it to, as a mid layer, fit underneath your shell a lot better. It's going to make sure that the material or the sleeve does not ride up on your arm when you're putting a jacket over it. And then you have chilly wrist syndrome, which always sucks. So that's just going to make sure that you don't get that chilly wrist syndrome. But in my own personal experience, sliding the nylon shell material underneath another shell doesn't have that same, sticking effect that you get with like a fleece. With the fleece, you will definitely have that material getting stuck and then riding up on your arm. But the shell on shell doesn't really do that so much. But I do really like that they added that little feature there. I think that is a nice addition. Like we saw on the CTAPS, we just have a simple elastic material here around the wrist. There is no Velcro or any kind of cinch adjustment here. So looking down at the hem, we don't see any shock cord or barrel locks to adjust the waist. It is just a stretchy elastic band. So that keeps it lightweight and simple. You don't have to mess with how tight it is. It is just going to very nicely pinch off the bottom to prevent moisture, spin drift, and wind from coming up underneath the jacket and losing heat through the bottom. So I really do like that. On the Atom hoodie, we do see that there is a cinch cord adjustment on both sides. It's a pretty thin piece of shock cord combined with a very simple little locking system. Personally, I do like this design better, just having the simple elastic band. That way you don't have to think about anything or play with it. It's just always, no matter what, going to pinch off the bottom, seal it, and make sure that you are trapping heat inside of here. Moving up to the hood, we do see a pretty big, pretty substantial hood on this, which is always great because that's going to allow it to fit over helmets. However, I'm not a huge fan of this hood design, and I'll get into that in a sec. So the zipper extends fairly far up, but then past that we have this like snap button kind of a system here, and it's really not easy to do. Not only is it hard without gloves, but it's even harder with gloves. But the idea here is that you kind of have like a pseudo gaiter because it is fleece lined on the inside, which I think is a nice touch. That way you can snap it closed and keep your mouth, nice and warm, allowing you to, expose your nose to breathe, but then making sure that your lips don't get frostbite. On the Atom hoodie, the zipper just extends all the way up, and it's just a much better design because this little snap button thing really sucks. So I think that on the final version, if they just extended that zipper all the way to the top, I think that would be much simpler. I've tried it with gloves, I've tried it without gloves, and especially getting that little bottom snap there to get closed is just a huge pain in the butt, and no one's going to want to do that. So the hood itself, I don't feel like is actually insulated. It kind of just feels like a simple shell. On the Atom hoodie, it is actually like insulated with some batting on the inside. But what's really interesting about this one is that on the back here, we don't see any kind of, cinch adjustment like we see on the Atom hoodie. It is actually just a simple elastic material, that fleece lined, vent that we see on the sides of the jacket. We see it on the back of the hood. And that is going to allow it to fit better with a helmet, and I'll show you here. All right, so here I have my Team Wendy Star Tactical helmet, and this is actually a climbing rated helmet, and what makes it so tactical is, well, we have a night vision shroud up here, as well as a actual chin strap, not the under the chin one, but it's a one size fits all helmet, so it's actually pretty big. So when I pull it over the helmet, you do see that I am able to get it over top, and it does allow me to add some weather protection without needing to pull off my life-saving device, right? Whether this be a ballistic helmet in, well, a non-permissive environment, or if I'm out doing some mountaineering and ice climbing, you need to be wearing your head protection at all times. Taking it off is just not a great idea. I don't like to do it. But for me personally, with this big helmet, I'm not able to get that zipper all the way up, and I definitely can't get that snap button closure thing up here close. But if I do throw it over the helmet and I get it up as high as I possibly can, I am still able to move my head up and down thanks to that stretch panel down here at the base of the neck. Now on the Arc'teryx Atom hoodie, we don't have that stretch panel back there. What we do have is just a much bigger hood that has a cinch cord adjustment at the back. It's my favorite kind because with or without a helmet, that cinch cord is going to allow it to hug your head very nicely. And when you adjust it, instead of it pulling it around your face, reducing your field of view, it actually opens up the hood, increasing your field of view, so that way you have better peripheral vision and better situational awareness. Also, the Arc'teryx Atom hoodie has some stretch around the brim of the hood, as well as a rigid material at the very top that's going to make sure that it doesn't fall down into your face without a helmet. And it's also going to make sure that it wraps around a wider variety of helmets. I think that that little addition, just that little elastic around the brim, would make this, a lot more usable with some pretty big helmets, because I have to imagine that this, Team Wendy climbing helmet is probably going to be about the same size as like a large or extra large ACH. So, my opinions. I think that this thing rocks, honestly. I think that they have a lot of great ideas here, especially because, a lot of them were taken from one of the best mid layers on the market. However, what I would change on this thing, I would probably just extend this stretch panel all the way up. I wouldn't have this removal of material here, because even though it's not approved as an outer garment, that is a very effective way to layer in this kind of environment for these kinds of applications. I just think it wouldn't hurt to just extend it all the way up. I think the creative freedoms that they took with this, extending this all the way up to the wrist, as well as the stretch panel down at the base of the hood, I think are really great. But personally, I think that the collar up here, the button snap thing, just isn't great. I think that extending the zipper all the way up, like we see on the Atom LT, is far superior. Now, with my own personal experience with this jacket, I've been wearing it around a bit in the winter. I've been wearing it as an active mid layer on some, just some winter walks, nothing too strenuous. And then I've also taken it cross-country skiing. So the way that I use this was I would just wear my shell as I'm skinning up the mountain, because I'm going to be exerting myself. Even if it's below freezing, I'm dripping sweat, because, going uphill like that is pretty tough, right? And then I have this thing in my pack so that once I get to the top, of course, my level 7 is going to come on, and then I'm going to start taking the skins off my skis. I'm going to be locking my bindings and just getting everything ready for going downhill. And then as the level 7 comes off and I'm ready to go downhill, this is going to come on, because downhill skiing is of course not going to be nearly as strenuous as, climbing uphill. So adding some extra insulation over top as I'm going downhill and the wind is going to just be ripping the heat from my body, this thing did a really awesome job keeping me warm on my way down. Now, I never really noticed, extra chill coming through the armpit, because of course I had my shell on underneath. I didn't remove my shell. I was layering over top, as we all should be. And because of those stretch panels, I was very easily able to throw my skins on the inside of my shell, zip this up. I had no problems there, and it did its job. It kept me very warm during varying levels of activity, which is exactly what we needed to do. So, of course, I don't expect the Department of Defense to care about my opinion. I just think it's really cool that I was actually able to get my hands on a prototype of a cold weather system being tested, and knowing that this thing might be popping up in surplus stores at some point is just such a cool thought. And it's also so cool seeing all the design features that are being used from commercial garments that I've used personally. And it's really cool seeing where the military and the outdoor recreational world intersect. So of course I have limited experience with this thing. But for all you guys that are actually out there testing this stuff in Alaska or wherever else, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Are you even allowed to talk about it? Do you like this thing? Do you agree with my opinions on it? And then for anyone in the military who hasn't used this, would you? What do you think? Would you use this over the level 3 Polartec fleece? Or do you think that this is a really bad direction? So let me know. As always, stay warm, or rather comfortably cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. Got a lot of really cool adventures I'm excited to take you on this winter, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you next time.